Micro portfolio in a little bit more detail. So this one is going to be looking at our cloud and data center security products. It's not all of the products in our cloud space. It doesn't include like hosted email, hosted web security and things, because we tend to look at those as sort of traditional security products that have moved to cloud. But this is security that is optimized to enable data center security to work properly, e.g. Virtualized environments. Also, how do we enable customers to have the same security controls when they move to the cloud? Things like, taking advantage of Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. How do you get the same level of security you used to have around your perimeter within those instances that are in that environment? So when we actually look at sort of the areas we'll be touching today, so the top set of functionality is really focused on a product called Deep Security. This is a server security platform. Originally developed to run within server environments, traditional sort of what we call physical environments where a server had its own OS and then you put all the applications on top of it. We then developed very closely some API with some of the virtualization vendors, mainly VMware, to enable a lot of this technology to integrate directly into their virtualization software and do a lot of it agentlessly. So basically enabling us to do it in an efficient way to reduce the impact on the virtual machines on that specific host. And more recently, we've started to see customers moving, obviously, instances out to the likes of Amazon Web Services and enabling, again, the same level of security, the same console to be able to control the security for those instances in other third-party data centers as well as their own data center, and including both virtualized and physical instances. While I call it a server security platform, it is also very good for large VDI deployments because of especially when running on top of VMware, due to the agentless nature of it. I wouldn't recommend this as a sort of traditional physical client solution. The Office Scan product we have is for traditional end-user clients is the better solution. It also supports server operating systems, but where you have operating systems like Linux, Windows, and where you need more controls, things like IPS, things like integrity monitoring, Deep Security is a better server security product than Office Scan. So that's how we would position it. We'll also quickly touch on some of our other cloud solutions. So the Encryption product, which is SecureCloud, and I'll explain how that works. But that enables when customers move instances to the public cloud, where they may have fears of that data not being encrypted, we can help encrypt the data associated with that virtual machine or host that machine in the public cloud. So if hard disks are stolen or the supplier doesn't clean up the disks properly, all that data is encrypted, and the key server is owned by the customer themselves. I would also touch on our SSL certificates. We're a root certificate authority and how that works, and also our web app security technology, which is a solution for scanning public-facing websites for vulnerabilities and threats, etc. So that's what we'll be discussing in this presentation. I will also then do a walkthrough of the Deep Security product, so you can see how that works. Okay. So as before, obviously we've got a lot of products there, but with the products I'm going to talk about today, we're going to focus on Deep Security. I'll touch on that a little bit. SecureCloud. So SecureCloud, as I mentioned, this is a solution that helps customers deal with data privacy in the cloud. So if they've got compliance requirements to keep certain data at rest encrypted, if they're concerned that the data destruction contract elements aren't fulfilled properly by the supplier, that it doesn't matter. And how it works, it effectively encrypts the data volumes that are running in the cloud associated with that customer's virtual machine. So an agent gets put onto the virtual machine, and then that will encrypt the back-end data volumes associated with that. and the key server is then managed by the customer or by Trend Micro. And obviously, the advantage of that is it negates issues and said around problems with hard disk not being destroyed, not being cleaned properly, which may be a compliance issue for some customers. So obviously, there's a view here of how that works. So you have the application, the Trend Micro encryption agent. This will then encrypt the data storage using a key. We talk to the key server, and this key server can either be in the Trend Micro Datacenter or it can be on the customer's premises. And then when the application has authenticated properly, we'll get the policy and the keys to decrypt that data within that specific shared storage. So here comes the key, and then that application is able to access that encrypted data within that location. Okay, so we've tested it on Amazon Web Services, VMware vCloud, OpenStack, CloudStack. So it works on most cloud-based systems. Yeah, so that's SecureCloud. I said today I won't demo that, but just so you know, that's in the portfolio. So web app security, I'll just go through these first before we go to deep security. That's what I spend most of our time on. So deep security for web apps, while it's called deep security, at the moment it's a separate product. It's a fully cloud-based service, so there's no local management consoles. What it will do, it's got a single console. It will scan a target website. So when we call a web app, is basically a fully qualified domain name. So anything like www.trendmicro.co.uk, that's a fully qualified domain name. Partner.trendmicro.co.uk, that is a fully qualified domain name. So each one of those would count as a web app. You would point it at the target site. We will then scan that site and its entire page structure, looking at both the web server and OS platform, the applications running in it, to ascertain whether there's any vulnerabilities that haven't been patched. We'll also use web reputation to check any links that link off somewhere else, to check that those are not linking to anywhere malicious, that someone might not have broken into, hack the site and linking people off. And also any files that can be downloaded off links, again, downloading those and scanning those for malware. From there, we can also do additional things. So we have a security expert that will do a periodic site audit. So that's like a penetration test by one of our engineers. It's usually once a year, but there can be up to 2 retests after things have been through. So that's looking for poor logic in the coding of the website. We can also deploy an IPS agent to that web server, so any vulnerabilities can be patched virtually by that agent before the software or the application is patched. And we also integrate with web application firewalls, not directly, but we can generate web application firewall rules based on the security flaws we find within that console. So when you look here, you can see that there's a hosted console. You've got a dashboard of what's been found, what's a high, what a low, and you can also sort of see the web applications that are being scanned. And from here you can drill down and start to make decisions. So actually from the information that's given, you can see, you've got high risk here, this vulnerability, what is it's critical, it gives you a description of what it is, and then a recommendation of how to deal with that specific vulnerability. Now you can also use the IPS agent to block that before it's patched, but this would give you what's the risk, and then you can then remove these from the console when you've done them, but also when it does a rescan, and you can have a scan up to every day, every 24-hour period, so it can pick up any new flaws. For customers that have, high volume sites, we've got lots of web teams, maybe third parties looking after them. You want to keep them, you want to keep them on their toes to make sure they're not adding any vulnerabilities. This is a great way to be able to scan those public-facing sites, make sure you're not compromising any of your customers. When I say your customers' customers. Especially now that the likes of Amazon are starting to host a lot more websites, it makes sense now that you can have something hosted. You don't have to have any local technology. This can scan those sites wherever they're located, and obviously being an Amazon web partner, that helps. So let's have a look here. So you've also got we're part of a few groups around web applications and the open web services groups and stuff. So let's quickly skip through this bit. Then from the web application firewall rule here, so we can generate these rules, and if you click on the actual interface, so here you can see which application firewall you wish to generate one for, and then you can just copy and paste that rule directly into the web application files. At the moment we support Citrix, Alert Logic, Imperva, and Mod Security. I have asked for F5, and that should be coming shortly. Okay. In terms of sort of those that we're competing against, Qualys, White Hat Security, Vericode, those kind of companies, but it's really a simple solution to scan multiple sites, keep central visibility, and automate the security around that piece as well. The next one is SSL certificates. This is very, very simple. So Trend Micro are one of about 30 root certificate authorities. We offer, rather than doing it on a per SSL certificate basis, we offer companies unlimited SSL certificates for up to 5 domains. So a domain would be obviously trendmicro.co.uk, trendmicro.com, trendmicro.fr, trendmicro.de, but any subdomains would also be covered. So if you've got lots of products that need SSL certificates, you want secure partner logins or customer login portals, you can generate as many, or customers can generate as many SSL certificates as they wish to for up to 5 domains. So if companies have a lot of subdomains, this is a very valuable product. If you're familiar with SSL certificates, we will then authorize or basically do the research on a company to say, you know, this is a genuine company. We will sign their certificate with our root certificate, so they can then generate certificates that are signed by us and come up with the green padlock on the nice green bar up here. We support both organizational validation, which is the sort of entry level, which just gives you the green padlock, and the extended validation, which then gives you the big green bar and the company name, and it seems to be the preferred choice. So that is the when we talk about Trend Micro SSL certificates, that's where we're offering. And so you've got more details here on the organization validation and the extended validation. So from a cost perspective, it's a much more cost-effective solution than having to buy per certificate prices from some of the other certificate authorities like VeriSign, from Symantec, Entrust, DigiCert, etc. So it gives a lot more flexibility. It's one price, and they can then generate as many as they want within that period. Okay. So I think we'll probably move on now to deep security. Just one final thing on Server Protect. So Server Protect traditionally was our oldest server security platform. I would say pretty much for any Windows, Linux, Solaris requirements, it's probably not the right product anymore. It does suit some storage requirements, so it supports EMC, NetApp, Hitachi storage for anti-malware scanning. But in terms of the engines and deployment capabilities, you're better off either using Office Scan or Deep Security. But Server Protect is really the solution still for any storage requirements where customers wish to be able to scan their large storage arrays. Okay, so let's have a look at Deep Security in a bit more detail. So as a summary, as I mentioned, Deep Security is a server security platform. It is multifunction. So on a physical server, it has a single agent which does intrusion prevention, firewalling, both bidirectional and stateful packet, anti-malware, web reputation, integrity monitoring, and log inspection. So very, very feature-rich. Usually, you'd have to have a single agent per function per server. Okay, so physical server, that's a single agent. When we start to move to the virtual environments with Hyper-V, Zen Server, KVM OpenStack. Again, it's a single agent per virtual machine. But when we have VMware, and this is where the partnership we've had with VMware has really paid off, we are able to do all of this functionality here. Log inspection does require, but all of the integrity monitoring, web reputation, anti-malware firewall, intrusion prevention, which is that virtual patching, that can all be done without any agent software required on each virtual machine. We only need to have one deep security virtual appliance per ESX host, and that can secure all of those virtual machines. And we've got granular control of those virtual machines because of the vCenter integration. We've also now extended the security to the cloud as well. So if customers have a vCloud Air or AWS account, we can link their cloud accounts to the Deep Security Manager, and anytime they provision a new machine within Amazon, a agent is deployed, and the policy that needs to be applied to that is also associated with that. So whether they've got physical machines, virtual service or VDI, or cloud service, all of that can be secured via a single interface. Now, I don't know if this is relevant for those on the call, but if you are an MSP and you have multiple customers you want to manage through one single deployment of deep security, usually this will be private data centers which you're managing for customers. You can have a multi-tenant architecture as well, so you can have one deep security manager managing multiple customer environments, and they can have only visibility of their instances and the security running on those. So that's a summary, but just sort of give you a bit of background as to why, where certain issues have happened. Obviously, this was where we started, physical servers. We've seen, obviously, quite a large adoption rate. I think by 2016, it's estimated about 75% of customers will have virtualized their servers, or 75% of server workloads will be virtualized. But we have seen issues where companies have started not necessarily got the right density or return on investment from their virtual environments because they've used traditional security. And also cloud adoption, because of the difficulty of securing cloud environments using traditional security. Again, that's been an inhibitor to stopping customers move. And this is where deep security really helps. It increases dramatically the ROI and the density you can get, especially on VMware. But also the cloud connectors enable customers to move to the cloud where they might not have done in the past. Also, trying to keep servers patched, the amount of customers I speak to, the vulnerabilities they're trying to deal with is just out of control. And especially when their server estate is ballooning, it's moving from the physical world to the virtual world and into the cloud. How do they ensure that everything is up to date? And when you look here, some of the numbers here, and this is increasing year on year, but 8 critical alerts every day. It's a huge amount for customers to have to deal with. And also the sort of traditional perimeter defenses are not able to protect. You get a compromised client, that compromised client's got free run behind the firewall, behind the network-based IPS. So you need to move defenses closer to the server, closer to the virtual machine in order to protect it, especially obviously when you're moving to the public cloud. There's a lot more standards and regulations that companies need to comply to, and again, PCI, how do we help customers with that? And a lot of the requirements to move technologies to different locations, having a lot more stuff on the DMZ in order to make things accessible externally, but you need to be able to have granular security on the DMZ. So when we look at deep security, as I said, these 5 major functions here are all done via vShield and VMsafe APIs that we co-developed with VMware. And one of the very important things here is around the way it integrates into VMware's vCenter. So whatever you see in vCenter is replicated in the Deep Security Management Console. And so we can manage physical agents, and you have all of this functionality here, or we can run as a virtual appliance on VMware which also includes hypervisor integrity monitoring. So if anyone tries to change or tap the hypervisor, we will highlight any changes there. The only notable difference is log inspection only works with a physical agent. It doesn't work with a deep security virtual appliance, but very rarely is log inspection required. But where it is, you would need to deploy an agent. Okay, and as I say, this is only VMware, but this would be on a physical machine, on Hyper-V, on Zen Server, OpenStack, etc. Okay. So we talked about the different modules. Obviously, from a firewall perspective, it's about reducing that attack surface, closing the unnecessary ports on that machine. We got a question here. Oh. Okay, perfect. Yeah, then the intrusion prevention. This is that stopping vulnerabilities that exist on the operating system from being attacked without having to roll out the patch. So obviously the time it takes to roll out a patch is quite timely, especially when we're looking at servers, especially mission critical servers which are always in use. You can't just reboot them. So having this technology, one, dramatically reduces the attack surface and time or the risk opportunity for that organization in terms of the time that vulnerability is exposed. Generally, we will get a rule out within 2 to 6 hours of a vulnerability being publicly made available. So that can automatically be pushed out to the entire server estate, client estate, depending on where that's installed. But it will also do it automatically. So we have a recommendation scan which can run every week or every couple of days and remove old rules that aren't required and implement new rules that are required based on new vulnerabilities that are being found or new applications that are being installed that haven't been patched to the latest version. So this is a very, very powerful solution, and it can be a really good ROI discussion. So rather than just talking security, you're actually saying, look, Mr. Customer, I can reduce the amount of money you're spending on your emergency patching because you're not having to pay overtime. You can do the patching during your normal window, your normal operational windows. Certain older operating systems like XP or Server 2003, we will continue to protect those with new rules on new vulnerabilities that are found, even after Microsoft stops supporting it. So yes, then you won't be able to deploy a patch, but Microsoft was never going to deploy one, but we can block that vulnerability from being exploited, so we can extend the usage of those operating systems, which again reduce cost for the business in terms of trying to move everything across and migrate everything across based on Microsoft's timescales. Antivirus or anti-malware engine with obviously the same level of sort of controls you'd expect on a normal agent. Web reputation, where we stop connections out to known threat sources. Integrity monitoring, which is looking for malicious or unauthorized changes. So maybe you've got an admin that's not following process. Maybe admin credentials have been stolen by a hacker and they're trying to get access to the servers. This would highlight any changes that have been made to that server. And again, that's required for certain regulations, like PCI needs integrity monitoring as a functionality. And then log inspection is about, when you think of all the Windows events, when you think of management events, and then you think about all of the events that come from all the modules, you don't want to have logs from all of those. You want to have some key ones. So log inspection will pull out those relevant logs and send them to a centralized SIM, for example, to reduce the amount of alerting you see. Because otherwise it just becomes really, you just get overrun with information. Okay, so this is what the console looks like. I will show you. We'll go in and have a look into the product in a minute. But web-based console, you've got a dashboard for all of the events that are going on, and then you can configure all of the different functionality. I was going to say this is a slightly older version. The new version 9 looks a little bit nicer, but we'll touch on that in a little bit more time. So when you think about the old way, so the old way had different agents for different functionality on each virtual machine or physical machine, and obviously this was quite heavy duty. All we do now is we install one deep security virtual appliance per server. Obviously it has to be VMware, and that obviously dramatically reduces the amount of memory and I/O usage on that server, so you can get an increase in density. So to give you an idea, I think it's on the next page, but if you take this as sort of best case, so for servers, so when you're virtualizing, Windows servers, Linux servers, you can usually get, well, you can get up to 30% increase in density on the same physical hardware from using traditional security agents to moving to the virtual appliance rule. For VDI, because they're very similar to builds, we can actually get close to a 60% increase. Now that's not guaranteed. That depends on the customer's environment and how much they're stretching the resources now. But generally, as a rule, you can get up to 60% increase in density. That's increased number of virtual machines running on the same physical appliance by using the deep security virtual appliance instead of the agents. So it is a sizable increase. Okay. Again, this is just a different way of looking at it. Traditional agents on all the virtual machines. Now with the virtual appliance, you get more machines, but you just have one virtual appliance, and then that will manage all of the security for each virtual machine. And we don't see these, we see each machine as a separate dedicated machine, and we have different rules and policies running for each individual machine on this environment. Okay, so when you start to look at the number of machines, so here this is at the very much at the high end, so 3 to 10 times higher VDI consolidation ratio. So traditional AV, you get 25 virtual machines. On here, you're getting 75 to 100. I think this is at the high end, but if they're all, built off the same golden image, then you are going to see sizable increases in those. And when we talk about the virtual patching, obviously we can do the basic filtering with a firewall. We can use basic exploit rules to stop known bad. Vulnerability rules to shield the vulnerabilities, and smart rules to be able to protect specific applications that are covered there. Now, we cover, I think it's about 350 different OSs and applications now. So this over 100 is more like over 300 in terms of different applications that run within the server environment. So, it covers an awful lot of applications. And I mean, this just gives you a visual example of vulnerability discovered. That's when the patch becomes available. Then your customer's got to test the patch. Then they've got to deploy the patch. All that time, systems are at risk. And certain applications can't be updated anyway, because they might have developed an application that has to run on a certain version. If you update that, then their application breaks. So as a result, they have to keep it on older version. Again, this could be used to protect that application while it's been on that older version. So the virtual patch, I said, comes up very quickly, and that reduces that risk massively. And this testing and deployment doesn't need to be done in an emergency form. It can be done in their standard patching cycle. Okay, and just to highlight a few things here, so 7 of the 20 PCI controls can be managed and done via the deep security solution. So there's a lot of things we can do to help support PCI deployments. So we've done that one. So yeah, so there's been some improvements. So this is more based on an older version coming to this one. So we now can do caching of the scan. So when we start scanning virtual machines, we cache the results from each virtual machine. So by the time you get to the last one, the time it takes to scan one is much quicker than the start, because we're caching the results we get, so we don't rescan files that are the same. We've talked about the cloud connectors. We've talked about the multi-tenancy support. So one thing I really wanted to cover off here, which I think is very important, so it's not necessarily something you're going to come up against now. I know that VMware are pushing this very heavily. So their NSX solution, their new software-defined networking, so where they're taking routing, firewalling, load balancing, VLANs, all of those from the physical network infrastructure into a software-based networking infrastructure. they are heavily pushing it. We are, with Deep Security 9.5, which is the latest version, we are tightly integrated into NSX. So we then become an actual catalog item within the configuration of NSX. So here you can start to see, Deep Security Anti-Malware, Deep Security IPS is actually already built into the NXS interface when you're doing the build. So that again is something very powerful. Most, there's not a huge number of customers present using NSX, but I see, over the next 12, 18 months, 24 months, we're going to start to see a bigger increase. And so VMware are betting their future on this. So I expect that they will be a lot of your customers looking to deploy NSX in the foreseeable. Okay. And in terms of file integrity monitoring, so we're looking at files that are being created or modified, permissions that are changed, groups that are changed, registry values that might change. So all of this we're looking to have a look at, and we will then report on that within the console. Okay. So I think that's enough on the presentation. So what I'll do now is I'll just close this, or I'll just minimize this and open up the console. So again, like I showed you earlier, this is a demo environment. So we've got 2 ESX servers within our cluster. We have VMware vShield Manager, which obviously required to do the vShield endpoints. We have a vCenter server, and we've got a few bits and pieces to help with the networking and things within this environment. So what I'm going to do is just log into this machine here. So what I've got is, so I'll just log into the Deep Security Manager. So master admin, so that's the default username. So that'll take us into, I'm going to spell that right. Okay, and also just log us into vCenter, hopefully still up here. Okay, host and clusters. Okay, so you can see from the vCenter here we've got 2 ESX hosts and we've got 3 virtual machines. One of them has a Deep Security Virtual Appliance on, so that's installed on here. And then we've got 2 servers as well. So one of these doesn't have a Deep Security Virtual Appliance on. But you can see from the cluster here, if we want to see them by virtual machines, we can just see them like this instead. But those are that's the vCenter view. Okay, so if we go to Deep Security Manager here, so this is the first, this is the dashboard page. Let's make this a bit bigger. As big as it's going to go, okay. So you've got views of the computer statuses, whether they're protected, if they've had any issues, account information, and so on and so on. So let's go to computer. So within computers we can see, well, what have we got? So you'll see here that we've linked vCenter to this interface. So that vCenter with all its hosts, clusters, and virtual machines are shown within this environment. So if I open up cluster 1 here, you can see I've got the 2 hosts that we talked about, and then from a virtual machine perspective, we can see the virtual machine. So it's a direct mirror of what's in vCenter that's shown in here. So every time something else is created within vCenter, so you spin up a new virtual machine, it will automatically appear within this environment. Now, there might not be that you're always going to have vCenter environment. Might be it's just a normal, might be a Hyper-V environment. So we can also add in, so we click on New here, so we can add groups, we can add directories, so that can be from Active Directory group, so if you want to Active Directory server, another a vCenter, or even a cloud account. So talking about earlier, linking directly into the Amazon interface, we can do that via software connectors we have from this console directly in there. So for vCloud Air. We will also soon have Microsoft Azure within this interface, but it means I can add in my information here, and all of my Amazon servers are automatically populated into this interface as well. Okay, so once I've got machines shown here, I then want to do things to them. So it might be that I want, so you'll see here under the solution, you'll see this server here is not prepared. The other one is. That means that this one has the deep security virtual appliance, which is this one here. If we wanted to prepare it, we just right-click on and add it. But what I wanted to just show you here is the virtual machines themselves. So there's two ways to apply security policy. First one is the machine appears. Obviously, at the moment, only machines on this host are going to be protected because it's the only one with virtual appliance. So let's have a look at this one here. So I'm going to double click on it. That's going to open up that specific machine. So I can see what group that machine's in. I can also see it has the base policy for Windows Server 2003. Now I can change that should I want to, because there's lots of predefined policy for different devices. But I'm going to leave that as is. But if I wanted to edit it, I can click Edit, and then that will change. I can then change the policy that I want for that specific machine. Okay. So here I can see it's managed. It's got an agent. I can see it's real-time anti-malware is working. Web reputation is not turned on. I've got 20 firewall rules, and I've got presently 76 intrusion prevention rules. So let's have a look at the intrusion prevention rules. So I can look in here, and then I can start to see which rules have been put in. So here we can see, the last recommendation scan was there was no recommendation scan, but I can start scan for recommendations. And that's now going to scan that endpoint and start to look at, are there any new recommendations that need to come in. Now, because this is a canned environment, it's not, but if that was in a real environment, we would say, okay, there's a couple more rules that should maybe be employed, and they will come up here, and you can either automatically deploy them or not. Okay. Firewall, again, very self-explanatory. I can assign new firewall rules here should I want to, but you have to think about this as this is the machine you're configuring the policy for, and you have all the policies for anti-malware, for web reputation, firewalling, etc. On this interface. And that's by clicking on the specific machine. Now, to build policy, I would go and click on policy here, and I would look at the rules that I wish to build. So if I want to build a new, say, firewall rule, so I can, let's do this new firewall rule. So that's called block ICMP part 2. The action obviously I want to build is deny. I want obviously it's IP, and the protocol I want is ICMP on version 4, and I want it for memory IP, any MAC, any subnet, etc. Do I want to have events, etc.? Then I can also, on options here, so we've certainly seen with certain customers maybe running Qualys, where they're doing a vulnerability scan. They don't want, they want to open up a certain scanning capability for certain times of day on a file, on a server, so you can actually schedule the firewall rules to come on and off at certain times of day, doing things like this. So, and then you can assign it. If you built this, you can then assign that. You can see who that rule's assigned to. So if you've got something strange going on, you can say, well, it's this rule that's blocking stuff. Okay, well, how do which machines have been affected by it? So now I've created that. I go back to computers, and then I will assign that rule. So if I double-click on this one, which I did before, I can then go to firewall, assign a new rule. It will then go into the rules. So obviously I did a block rule. So these are the first 25. They're allow rules. We've got block rules. I've gone too far, sorry. Okay, there we go. So I've got block ICMP part 2, so that's one I've just created. So I click on that and then go OK. And then that will now be part of this policy. So for this client, if I scroll down on the rules that it's got implemented, see now you can see block ICMP is now part of that rule stack for that specific machine. Okay, so relatively easy. Now that's quite manual, and I just wanted to show you how that works. Now we have, because the nature of this is trying to make administration a lot easier, we have under administration here, we have what we call event-based tasks. So event-based tasks allow me to create automatic rules. So when we start to think about, okay, I've got a new machine that's being created, as an admin, I don't want to have to go and add an agent, configure the rules. I just want it all to be automated. So what we can do is compute created by system. So if something is created by vCenter, we will then take an action on it. We might have vMotion that has moved. So computer moved mean that there is an action on when a machine is moved from one ESX to another. It might be when an IP address changes. It might be that an agent has just been installed on a virtual machine, and again, we want an action. So let's just pretend this is a new machine. So created by system. So now we want to say, well, okay, we want to activate the machine. Maybe we don't want to have it immediately. Let's say 5 minutes after it's booted, we want that policy to be assigned. We want to assign a policy. So which policy do we want? Well, we'll look at the base policy. You can edit these base policies. So maybe for we want the Windows 7 desktop policy. Okay. So do we want to have, we don't need to worry about this. We might have computer groups. We might have a group that has clients which are Windows 7. So you can assign those to groups or what have you. So I'm going to go next. And then here, I can actually do it on, so I want to maybe do it on computer name, the host name. So I can say, start off. So anything with Win7 in would have that automatically provision to it. So that means anything within the host name Win7 within the name, because that might be the host name usage. Now, the power of this, well, this is a simple example. Think about SQL servers. You don't want it scanning the databases on there. Exchange servers, you don't want the mail store being scanned by this. So you might want to create exclusions within a specific rule or set of rules for firewall and IPS that can be automatically assigned when that machine is created. So I go next, and we're going to call it Win7 auto policy. Oh, except I can't spell. And then every time a Windows machine is built, which has in the host name Win7 as the naming convention, it will, after 5 minutes, deploy the policy for a Windows 7 device. And I say you can edit there, you can create all of those base policies as you wish. So if I go back to the policies here, you can have, where are we? So computers. So these policies here, you can edit all of these policies to be able to change them in terms of what you can create as many as these base policies if you wish, and you can have, maybe a Windows Server 2008 policy, but under Windows Server 2008 you have an SQL Server 2008, you have an Exchange Server 2008, a domain controller, and so on. And then you can apply those policies based on that host name. So it's a very, very powerful tool to be able to automate that that security on that machine. So I think hopefully that gives you a reasonable insight into deep security as a solution. I'm just thinking we've probably got we've got about 10 minutes left. I think what I'll do is I'll just show you something here. So I thought what I'd do is just in terms of the, so I didn't get to show you the web security earlier, so I just thought I'd show you the hosted web security console. So this is our InScan Web Security as a service. So I'm just going to show you how that works, just so you can see how some of the functionality we have here. So no on-premise kit is required whatsoever. We can combine this with the hybrid interface. If the hybrid interface can configure this one, and it can configure the on-premise gateways, but I certainly see customers looking at this as a solution that's a lot more valuable because of the fact that they don't have to have any on-premise technology. And obviously, wherever those users go, they're filtered by it. So obviously, security policies are the basic ones like block executables, do anti-malware scanning, all of those kind of basic things you'd expect. What to do with unscannable files where there are, multiple levels of archives. And here you can block certain things, certain file types that you don't wish to be coming through. So that's basic stuff, but that's global across all of the users. Then for access policies, you've got two types. You've got URL filtering policies, and then you've got application control policies. So if you wanted to create a new URL filtering policy, you would go in here, you'd type your rule, you'd decide whether this was for everybody, which would be any, or you wanted to use specific users or groups. This links, even though it's hosted, will link to Active Directory. You can either use a local directory, you can use a sync agent to sync the credentials, you can have a direct link to Active Directory, or you can also use single sign-on solutions as well. So from here, if I wanted to find, let's say I want to find myself, the prior policy, I can search for James Walker, do a search. There's me as a user, so okay, let's put me into that group. Now, you can have different rules depending on where, if users are behind certain gateways, certain public IPs, you might want to have certain rules only affecting them. You also want to have it from reporting perspective and also time of day. So you might create a gateway for the US, East Coast, and they will be 5 hours ahead of London, or sorry, 5 hours behind. So when you have a time-based filtering policy, it will adjust by 5 hours that filtering policy. So you don't have the filtering policy starting at 4 a.m. when it starts at 9 a.m. in the UK. It actually starts at 9 a.m. local time for them behind that gateway. And then from here, so that would be any time. That would be based on time, or you can have specific ones here. Then you're going to URL categories. So you've got loads of different categories you can choose. So maybe from an adult perspective, you don't want to have any porn being viewed. So let's remove porn and nudity. And we can then add time of day controls. So let's go, right, let's Monday from 9 to 5 or 6 o'clock. Actually, for lunchtime, we'll allow them some lunchtime where they're allowed to look at porn. I don't know if that's appropriate, but you can do what you want. Then down here, you can then decide what that rule is. So it's like a firewall in terms of it. So I might want to say block or warn the user or just monitor. So warn users, this is bad, but you can still view it. This is block. This is allow, because it might be an override rule to a block rule for everybody, or monitor, so it just gets logged, but the user doesn't know they're being logged. So I'm going to hit save for monitor only, and then that becomes a rule within the rule stack. So the way it works is it will go along each rule first, and you can change obviously the priority order. They'll go along here until it has a match, either deny match, allow match, monitor match, and then will then make a decision on what to do. Once it has a match, it makes that and moves off, but if it doesn't have a match, it keeps going down and down and down until it has a match, and that might be block everything, it might be allow everything, whatever that may be. So that's the URL filtering. For application filtering, it works in pretty much the same way. So you choose your users, you choose your group, but what I'll just sort of show you some of the, in terms of the applications. So let's look at Facebook, for example. so being a Web 2.0 app. So you can block all of Facebook, or you say, well, actually, they're allowed to, maybe we've got a block rule on Facebook, but we want to allow them to post messages. So post messaging is okay because it's for marketing. So the group might be marketing, but it's still a risk about them uploading or downloading files. We don't really want them to use chat. So this might be an override rule, and that's for work hours, and then that's an allow rule, and then you hit save. So it works pretty much like that. Okay. Oh, I need to put a. Okay. So I'll click, hit save, and then that will be allowed for that specific filter. So that's how the solution works. You've got a lot of analysis and reports you can generate around policy enforcement, to see the logs, or you can generate reports on loads of different reports, top 10, top 50 malware, usage. So it's really up to you what you wish to use. If you click add, you can then go and see all of the different reports that exist for the information you wish to look at. So here you can see, top 10 users for botnet detection, top 10 applications visited, and so on and so on. So and you can change the numbers in that field there. From an administration perspective, obviously set up your internet gateways here. This does HTTPS inspection as well. We pre-built PAC files for you, so that's proxy files which give certain rules in terms of how to behave when a user logs on. So it's a little bit more advanced than a basic proxy address that's pushed out to the browser via GPO. This is actually a PAC file that says, behave, go here in this instance, go here in this instance. So it might be, be able to allow them to bypass or get access to a hotel gateway in order to authenticate before they go out to the internet. We also have with these an enforcement agent. So an enforcement agent allows you to lock in a PAC file and lock it to a specific browser. So if customers got Internet Explorer as their default, you can forbid Opera, Safari, Firefox, Chrome from being used, and that's the only one that's allowed to be used within that customer environment. The mobile VPN. So we also have the ability to link to iOS and Android devices. So here you'd obviously put your APNS profile, to be able to connect to the push profiles, VPN profiles to that iOS device, and then Android here again, in order to push down the certificates required to use the VPN via those mobile applications. Okay, and then obviously things like domains, domains that your users are going to be using, Active Directory. So I said there's different Active Directory connections that can be used. So yeah, it's a really useful solution. It's very easy to deploy, and you can either have it as a proxy using PAC files, or you can have it as a transparent gateway and have the gateway to the customers, the firewalls effectively forwarding all port 80, 80, 80, 443 traffic to that specific hosted gateway. So hopefully that was useful. I think we're getting close to time now, so I'm just going to see if there's any questions that have come up. It doesn't look as though there are, so I think what we'll probably wind it up now. So again, as with this morning, if you have got any questions, or you want to go through any more of these in a bit more detail, ping myself an email. It's james_walker@trendmicro.co.uk, or alternatively contact your E92 account manager, and we will be able to help you. So again, thank you very much for your time today. I hope that was useful. Speak to you soon. Thanks.